So I started learning about Agile in 1999, that's 16 years ago. And I'm still learning. So I just wanted to quickly take a pulse. Who considers themselves to be a beginner in Agile development? Come on, don't be shy. Well, if you consider yourself to be a beginner, if you want to use that word. I mean, otherwise, okay, how about intermediate? You think you know a few things about Agile, you can use it, you're still learning a lot. Okay, who considers themselves to be an expert? Someone who maybe could teach other people about Agile stuff. Right, a lot of people didn't raise their hand there, so I don't know, maybe you're too shy. But I'm not going to be showering you with details today. I've learned a lot of details. I've learned about TDD and XP, Scrum, Kanban. I've learned from colleagues and mentors and trainers, and I've learned the most just from doing it. But today I'm going to talk to you about the essence of Agile. And you're not going to be learning it from me. We're going to be learning from the master, Bruce Lee. But don't take my word for it. This is Chuck Norris. Lee was lightning fast, very agile, and incredibly strong for his size. That's Chuck Norris. You want to argue with Chuck Norris? So before I go into Bruce Lee and Agile, let's cover non-Agile. This is a very common software development theory. You collect all the requirements, you think of everything, you make a complete plan, you execute the plan perfectly, do all the programming, then you do all of the testing and it all worked. Then you do all the documentation, you deliver it to the customer, and they love it because that was exactly what they wanted. This would be great, but Agile really exists because things don't go to plan, things change. So Bruce Lee was primarily an actor. He went to Hollywood to make kung fu movies. But his influence and his impact has actually, if you think about it, affected a lot of Western culture. There's a lot of references to the sorts of things he brought as a symbol of martial arts from Eastern culture to the West. So he's a symbol. And that's nice, but what could he teach us about Agile software development? Well, just because he's an actor doesn't mean that he can't teach us. What can he teach us? Well, the first thing is balance. And this is one of the fundamental and most underrated themes in Agile. Most of the time in software development, we're talking about maximizing this or minimizing that, having the greatest quality we can achieve or the fastest throughput, some other factor. But actually, what we really need to do is a cost-benefit trade-off on each of these things. We need to be thinking, okay, we want more quality, but that's going to take more time or more effort or more money. So we're actually balancing. And actually, I think you can go a long way. If you see what you're doing as a balance of one thing against another. Where's the balance point that you want, and what are you balancing? So here's an example from the Agile Manifesto, published in the early 2000s, about the sorts of things we might be balancing in Agile. So it's not as if everything that has value must be pursued to the nth degree. It's not as if individuals and interactions are the only things that matter. They're better than perhaps processes and tools if we ever have to choose. And the reality is we always have to choose. So I see Agile, the Agile Manifesto, as trying to teach us about that balance. And this comes down to a philosophy. There's a lot of that in the Agile Manifesto. But let's go back to Bruce Lee. What was Bruce Lee's philosophy? Has anyone got much experience with Bruce Lee's personal philosophy, or have they read his book or anything like that? Put your hand up if you know a little bit about Bruce Lee in that sense, apart from his on-screen antics. One or two. So I want to play you a little video, which is from a lost interview, so-called, of Bruce Lee explaining his personal philosophy.
There were some lines that expressed your philosophy. I don't know if you remember them or not.
Oh, I remember that. I said, this is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You with me? So here's a quote from Bruce. When one has no form, one can be all forms. When one has no style, she can fit in with any style. So what does this mean for software development? Well, let's go to the 12 principles from the Agile Manifesto. Here are 3. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Self-organizing teams, regular adaptation to changing circumstance. Bruce Lee just beat 3 of the 12 Agile principles in a fight. This guy doesn't mess around. Next time you get changing requirements or your team's freaking out, just say, hey, become the teapot. So where does this come from? When we look at the history of Agile, you can't really go past Kent Beck. On comp.object, if anyone remembers Usenet News, well before the fancy modern web, there was a discussion about XP, the birth of XP, his book, Extreme Programming, and the working title was Embrace Change. It wasn't called XP until quite late in the development process, and it was a community event. But then he also went on to define an even more distilled essence of what he considers to be Agile in test-driven development, or TDD. So it's all about embracing change. So this is the being like water. Don't fight the change. Don't present your idea of what the world is, and be always butting up against the reality. Embrace the reality. The reality is happening. You can't ignore it. And the influences in Agile really come from other industrial processes. These are the most common cited references, where you've got the Toyota production system, arguably the most important product of Toyota, Eli Goldratt's theory of constraints, and martial arts always comes in here. Bruce Lee's fighting style was always distinct from the existing sorts of things that he learned, and what he was really proposing is that we have no fixed positions. So in martial arts, there are these, snake in the grass technique and dancing monkey technique, and and you can imagine these martial arts movies. No, my style is better than your style. They're warring against each other. TDD is better than XP, and Kanban's better than Scrum, and all of this stuff. Where these are forms. These are the sorts of fixed positions that maybe we should transcend. And here's Bruce Lee again. All fixed set patterns are incapable of adaptability or pliability. The truth is outside of all fixed patterns. So he's saying there's no one right way to do things. Now I want to talk about progress. This is a value, I think, that we see in technology, in software, and hopefully in our development processes. Here's another one from Bruce Lee. Efficiency in sparring and fighting is not a matter of correct classical traditional form. Efficiency is anything that scores. See how practical that is? So back to the 12 principles. Here's 2 more. Working software is delivered frequently, weeks rather than months. Working software is the principal measure of progress. That's what scoring means. Working software. And here's Bruce again. Use only that which works and take it from any place you can find it. Right? You can really see the parallels here between Agile principles and what Bruce Lee's philosophy is. So don't get caught up in rituals. So don't make an impact on the actual outcomes you're looking for. Here's another one. Any technique, however worthy and desirable, becomes a disease when the mind is obsessed with it. So if you become a Scrum Master, I'm a certified Scrum Master, you won't see it on my resume, you get too stuck into complying with the process and seeing everything through that lens, you're actually going to miss the point. The point is your goals, your project. That's what you're trying to do. And another value in Agile that's very, very prominent is simplicity. Here's Bruce Lee on simplicity. Again, he has a lot of specific advice here. Of course, he's talking here about burn-down charts, not the daily increase, but the daily decrease. And hack away at the unessential. I mean, how much more obvious does it need to be? Hack away at the unessential. So from the 12 principles, simplicity. I'll let you read that yourself. Maximizing the amount of work not done. Iteration. If you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. Make at least one definite move daily towards your goal. Who of us here needs to hear that advice? A fight is not won by one punch or kick. Either learn to endure or hire a bodyguard. He's obviously talking about iteration. And you might be thinking here, okay, this is all a lot of metaphors. This is not really going to help me about agile software development. It's not like Bruce Lee can tell us anything really specific about, say, iteration length. Wrong. 2 weeks. It's Bruce Lee. You got that? We hear a lot about best practice. I hate best practice. I think there's no such thing. So what I'd like to suggest we replace it with is just practice. And this is actually something that, these are not my ideas. They're not even Bruce Lee's ideas. And they're not Agile's ideas. They're all shared amongst us. Practice. Bruce Lee's reputation for relentless training earned him great respect in the community. This is what he says. Effectiveness can only be achieved through repetitious practice. So here's another one. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. It's a very stark piece of advice, and it's quite humbling, the idea that you can't just think about it, do it, and get it right. You actually need to train your body in the practice. And I think that's certainly true of martial arts, and I'm proposing that it's absolutely true of software development, and actually of most things. And so rather than best practice in Agile methods, we're talking about Kaizen, which is a Japanese word. It doesn't have any sort of huge mystical meaning. I understand it just means continuous improvement. It's not a way of life. But Kaizen is just the word used for continuous improvement. And this is the concept I would replace best practices with. So here's another one from Bruce Lee. Be happy, but never satisfied. Continuous improvement. There's no best practice. We're not going to get there and then say, okay, well, now we're doing best practice. We can just sit back and just continually follow the bouncing ball, keep doing what we're doing. We're always going to feel the same way about what we're doing. We're always going to be aware of something we could be improving. And if we're not, there's something wrong. And here's Jackie Chan, not Bruce Lee. This is also about following an ideal or following a personalized goal. Your project's goal is your goal. It's not about trying to adhere 100% to some agile method. It's not about compliance with a process. You could have your process defined, you could work for years, you could practice, you could say, all right, now we're finally doing agile perfectly, and the customer can be unhappy with what they've been delivered, and all of that process compliance can mean nothing. So don't try to be Jackie, don't try to be Bruce Lee, don't try to be Kent Beck, don't try to be agile. Try to be embody your project's goal. Be like water. So here are the 12 agile principles all together. I don't want you to read them all. I just wanted to give you a selection. I wanted to give you some metaphors. I want to connect with a long tradition of balance, of simplicity, of embracing change. And I want to leave you with this quote. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. And this isn't Bruce Lee. This is Goethe. This is one of the most commonly quoted, I guess, pieces of wisdom that Bruce Lee gave. So when we're in our agile teams, when we're trying to do the software, when we're trying to get things right, we're wondering, okay, where is that balance point? What are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to do? Maybe we should try this, or maybe we should do things the way we've always done them. Where you're finding that balance point, and remember why you're doing it. You're not doing it because this is one of those agile practices that you haven't yet nailed and you've got all of the rest. You're doing it because of your project's goals. Not only that, you can't just decide to do it. You can't just read it in a book. You actually have to implement it. And then you're not going to get it right. And the next time you try again, and the next time you try again. And maybe you're not going to do that 10,000 times, but the point should be clear. You're not going to get it right first time. You need to continually train your body, your subconscious, your practices need to become second nature. So when you're solving problems in your process, by asking, what's the agile way of doing this? You can also ask yourself, what would Bruce Lee do? Nobody can beat him. Chuck Norris. Thank you very much.